Right now, there is a specific number sitting inside a VA file with your name on it. This isn't a rumor or a guess, it is an actual dollar figure, calculated under federal law, that the government owes you every single month for the rest of your life. Yet, most veterans who served before 1990 will never see a single cent of it. That isn't because they were denied or because they don't qualify. It's simply because nobody ever sat them down to explain where that money comes from or which forms to file to claim it. I am going to break that down for you right now in plain, straightforward language with zero legal jargon. My name is Lana Maines, and I'm here to bring you clear financial information that helps you keep more of what you've earned and protect the people who depend on you. If you find this helpful, hit subscribe. I break down these exact benefits and forms every single week, one topic at a time. The most common issue I see isn't fraud or laziness. It's honest, careful veterans who filed their original paperwork, accepted the initial percentage the VA gave them, and walked away permanently. They left hundreds of dollars a month on the table simply because no one told them that initial number was calculated wrong. That is the most expensive mistake you can make because it is completely invisible. There is no warning letter or red flag. It's just money you were legally owed that was never paid, month after month, year after year. Over a lifetime, that quietly adds up to tens of thousands of dollars without the VA ever sending a single notice to point it out. The VA will never volunteer this information to you. It's not a conspiracy, it's just how the system operates. The VA processes what you put in front of them. It doesn't actively look for reasons to increase your check. No employee working behind that counter is evaluated on how much extra money they can find for you. Their job is simply to process the paperwork on their desk accurately and move on to the next file. Closing the gap between what you are owed and what you are actually receiving has always been the veteran's responsibility, whether anyone made that clear to you or not. So, let's look at the specifics, because this applies to far more than just a small group of veterans. If you served before 1990, if you served before 2021, or if you were anywhere near the air, water, soil, or chemicals used in any theater of operations during your time in uniform, there is a strong chance your file has never been calculated correctly. The laws changed, eligibility expanded, and the VA has no requirement to call you up and let you know. This applies just as much to someone who has never filed a claim as it does to a veteran who has been rated for 30 years and assumes their file is permanently closed. Everything else we cover comes down to whether your service falls inside one of 4 specific windows, so let's walk through them step by step. The first is 1962 through 1975, which is the Agent Orange window. If you served in Vietnam, in the surrounding waters, or anywhere herbicides were used or stored during that period, the law automatically presumes that any of more than 20 specific conditions you have today were caused by that exposure. You don't have to prove it, and you don't need a doctor to testify about causation decades after the fact. The law already established that link for you. In VA terms, that is what presumptive means. The legal connection is built directly into the statute, and the VA cannot demand proof of a link that Congress has already recognized. A narrower window sits right inside that same era from 1968 through 1971. This covers specific herbicide formulations and particular military installations, including domestic bases in the U.S. where these chemicals were tested or stored. If you served at one of these designated locations during this time frame, presumptive eligibility applies to you even if you never deployed overseas. Next, any service prior to August 2nd, 1990 falls under the Gulf War presumptive rules. Veterans from this era who deal with unexplained chronic conditions such as chronic fatigue, functional gastrointestinal disorders, or other undiagnosed illnesses that are typically difficult to document can qualify without having to build a causal medical case from scratch. The newest and broadest window extends through December 31st, 2020. The PACT Act, passed in 2022, established an entire category of presumptive conditions for veterans exposed to burn pits, airborne hazards, and toxic particles in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Djibouti, and other post-9/11 locations. Veterans who were previously turned down because they couldn't prove a respiratory condition or cancer was directly connected to their service now have a clear, direct path to approval. More than 20 types of cancer and dozens of respiratory and sinus conditions are on this presumptive list. That includes post-service asthma, chronic bronchitis, multiple types of sinusitis, and cancers ranging from respiratory and gastrointestinal to melanoma and certain reproductive cancers. If you were deployed anywhere near an open burn pit and have developed a condition in this category since returning home, this is likely the most under-filed window of all four. It is the newest law, and word still hasn't fully spread even years after it was passed. Pay close attention to this detail. If your claim was denied before 2022, it was likely decided under older rules that are no longer active. The VA will not automatically reopen your case for you. You have to file again, and that window is open right now. Identifying which of those four windows you fall into is only the first step. The larger financial issue usually lies in a place most veterans never check, the math itself. The VA does not add disability percentages together using basic arithmetic. Instead, they use what is called the whole person method. For example, a 30% rating leaves you considered 70% whole. If you have a second condition rated at 30%, that percentage is applied to the remaining 70%, not the original 100%. That adds roughly 21 additional points, bringing your total to 51%, which rounds down to 50%, not 60%. If you extend that math across three separate conditions rated at 30% each, most people assume they would hit a 90% rating. However, the VA's formula actually comes out to roughly 66%, which rounds to 70%. The payment difference between a 70% rating and a 90% rating on current VA compensation tables is well over $500 every single month for life. When you add a fourth or fifth condition, which frequently happens when secondary conditions are included, the gap between what a veteran expects to receive and what the official math produces gets even wider, because each new percentage is calculated against a smaller remaining whole. When you layer presumptive conditions on top of that unique math, the final outcome changes significantly. A veteran sitting at a 70% rating who never listed two additional presumptive conditions, not because they were hiding them, but because no one told them to, might actually be entitled to a 90% or even 100% rating once those conditions are properly filed. Secondary conditions matter just as much. A back injury that eventually leads to sleep apnea, or long-term medication for a service-connected condition that causes stomach issues over time, are both fully rateable. Yet, almost nobody files for them. If you already hold a disability rating and served within one of those four windows, there is a high probability you are carrying unclaimed conditions right now. Furthermore, if you were denied years ago due to a lack of evidence, a PACT Act presumptive classification can now serve as new evidence under the VA's supplemental claim rules, without requiring fresh medical proof. Take a quick pause here. Go to va.gov and search for your service era along with the word presumptive. Compare that official list against your own medical history, including any health issues you never previously connected to your military service. Checking this now is critical because the next steps build directly on what you find. While you are on the site, if you served in any post-9/11 deployment location, take a moment to register for the Airborne Hazards and Open Burn Pit Registry. It is a free questionnaire and optional health exam that accomplishes two things. It creates a documented medical record of your exposure, and it flags your file for outreach whenever the presumptive list expands, which has happened multiple times since the PACT Act passed. Registering is not the same as filing an official claim and does not guarantee benefits on its own, but it places your exposure history into a system the VA recognizes. That can significantly shorten the process later if you need to establish a connection for a condition not automatically covered by presumptive rules. It also helps to understand what each rating level is worth financially, because the step up from one tier to the next is often larger than expected. Based on current VA compensation tables, a single veteran with no dependents at a 10% rating receives around $175 a month. At 30%, that increases to roughly $535. At 50%, it sits near $1,130. At 70%, it reaches about $1,760. At 90%, it rises to approximately $2,240. At the 100% level, a single veteran receives roughly $3,830 per month, with additional monthly pay added for spouses and dependent children. Every 10-point jump on that scale isn't a small adjustment. It typically adds several $100s a month. That is why getting your combined math corrected rather than accepting a calculation from years ago is so valuable. There is another major benefit that sits entirely on top of your standard disability rating. It is rarely mentioned during initial appointments, yet hundreds of thousands of veterans qualify for it without knowing it exists. It is called Special Monthly Compensation, or SMC. SMC is not a variation of your standard disability percentage. It is a separate, additional payment designed for functional losses that regular ratings don't cover. This includes things like the loss of use of a limb, loss of a reproductive organ, severe vision or hearing loss, or requiring regular assistance from another person for daily tasks like bathing, dressing, or taking medication. Any of these can trigger SMC pay. Even conditions that don't amount to a full loss of use can sometimes qualify for a lower SMC tier if they severely impair daily function, which is why a formal evaluation is so important. SMC tiers range from SMC-K on the lower end up to SMC-T at the top. The additional monthly amounts start at around $115 and go up to well over $9,000 for veterans who require full-time care. The specific level most frequently missed is SMC-L, which applies to veterans rated at 100% who also require aid and attendance. Current tables place SMC-L at roughly $4,118 per month, compared to about $3,730 for standard 100% disability alone. That leaves an extra $381 a month sitting unclaimed for veterans who already meet the qualifications. Veterans who received their ratings before 2010 are especially likely to have been missed, as older exams focused almost entirely on percentages rather than evaluating daily functional needs. SMC requires a dedicated evaluation, and many examiners simply never ask the questions necessary to trigger it. The precise phrasing on your claim application matters far more than most people realize. Specific terms like loss of use and aid and attendance must appear directly in your paperwork. If you simply write, "I need help with daily activities," instead of using those exact terms, an SMC review may never be initiated. The VA processes what is written on the page, not what was intended. 2 additional programs deserve attention because they are frequently overlooked. First, the Veterans Pension with Aid and Attendance is completely separate from disability compensation. It is designed for wartime veterans with limited income who need help with daily living activities, and it does not require a service-connected disability at all, only qualifying wartime service and financial need. Second, if a veteran passes away from a service-connected condition or was rated 100% disabled for a specific period prior to passing, their surviving spouse may qualify for dependency and indemnity compensation, DIC. This monthly benefit provides continued financial support long after the veteran is gone. Both programs are routinely missed because they fall outside the standard disability claim process. Military retirees face a unique situation that requires attention as well. For decades, retirees who received VA disability compensation had their military retired pay reduced dollar for dollar by the amount of their VA check. This offset forced veterans to choose between their earned retirement and disability pay, quietly costing thousands of retirees substantial money every year without them realizing an offset was occurring. That system has changed for most retirees through 2 programs: Concurrent Retirement and Disability Pay, CRDP, and Combat-Related Special Compensation, CRSC. Both programs restore some or all of that offset depending on your rating and how your injuries occurred. If you are a military retiree with 20 or more years of service and a disability rating of 50% or higher, or if any of your conditions are combat-related, contact your branch's retired pay office directly. Many retirees are still subject to an offset that current rules would eliminate, sometimes retroactively covering multiple years. A higher overall disability rating also unlocks major benefits outside of your monthly payment check. Many states offer partial or full property tax exemptions tied to your VA disability rating. These exemptions often scale upward with your rating and can reach a 100% property tax exemption in certain states, saving you thousands of dollars annually. Additionally, veterans rated at 50% or higher move into a higher priority group for VA healthcare enrollment. This improves appointment wait times and lowers out-of-pocket costs for medical care, even for conditions unrelated to your service rating. None of these benefits apply automatically. Each requires its own application with its respective office, and none are triggered simply by a change in your VA disability rating letter. To make this easier, I have gathered the state-by-state tax exemptions, fee breaks, and refunds that many seniors qualify for but never claim. I compiled them into one organized place, broken down state by state and form by form, saving you from spending hours searching government websites. Everything is clearly structured so you can quickly find what applies to you. Regardless of where you live, there are likely benefits you are leaving behind. You can find this resource, called the Senior Exemption Playbook, in the first pinned comment right below this video. Simply click the link to access everything you need. Now, stay focused on this next point, because it is where veterans quietly lose the most money of all. It is the core reason I put this guide together. None of the rating math or SMC tiers matter if you lose the date attached to your claim. This is where veterans who do everything else right still lose money, simply because they file their paperwork in the wrong order. The date the VA uses to determine when your monthly payments begin, known as your effective date, is not the day your claim is approved. It is the date your claim was officially received. Alternatively, if you submit one specific form before filing your full claim, your effective date becomes the date that initial form was submitted. That single distinction can be worth thousands of dollars.